Hey, what is up, everybody? It is Quinchess, and today we're playing Solus Aurelius, who is from the United States, and we're going to start out with the Sicilian Dragon here. And our opponent is playing an interesting variation with c3, bishop d3, putting the bishop back on c2. Looks like he wants to get something going, pointing his bishops to our king side, but we have a fianchetto position, which is a strong pawn spearhead at g6. So hopefully we can neutralize his potential attack along that b1 to h7 diagonal. And today I want to talk to you guys about the idea of frame control. So what our opponent is saying with his moves, he's asserting a frame. Every move that he makes, he's also saying something about the position, right? It's not just neutral, like I'm gonna allow you to just walk all over me and win the game. It's very much a prescriptive statement. He's making claims and trying to assert himself into the position. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to also make claims. It's like a debate. We're going back and forth with each other. Sorry about that. That was my alarm. And we are having a back and forth. We're having an argument. It can be peaceful. We can say it's a debate, or it can be very abrupt and conflictory. We can say it's an argument. Depends on what the tone of the game is. So here we're going to say that we have a claim in the center. We can play d5 and we can challenge him. And maybe this pawn will even creep forward to d4 at some point, maybe rook d8 to support that. And our opponent can't push to e5. So we're saying we deserve a piece of the center, and you're going to have to give that up to us, is what we're saying. So let's see how our opponent responds to that. He plays rook to e1, and now we can capture, or we can play something else. We can maybe prepare a d4 at some point. That looks kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and play rook d8. And this is just a move that I'm interested in exploring further. So now we have 1, 2, 3 contenders of d4, and he's got 1, 2, 3 as well. So he goes ahead and plays his pawn up to e5, and we're just going to pull our knight back, and we're going to challenge this pawn. It's if we would have taken there, it would have not been as good for us in my estimation. And now we can maybe play a move like knight to b4. I'm just looking at this. Or we can develop our bishop to a more active square. Let's go ahead and start with that. But he's got some additional space in the center now. So his frame is definitely coming through the position as well. And we're going to have to do something about that. I'm anticipating maybe like a rook c1 move at some point from our opponent. And we may not have managed the center as well as we would have liked in this early part of the game. I think maybe taking on e4 earlier would have been a little bit better. But then he gets a pawn on e4 as well, but he doesn't get the pawn chain. We'll have to look at that in the subsequent analysis. So he puts his bishop on b3, and he's hitting this pawn that's undefended. Let's go ahead and defend that now. And this square is currently not being contended by any of his pieces, so we'll have to pay attention to that. We can maybe even play f6 to try to harass his center at some point. That move looks quite interesting to me. And in fact, let's go ahead and play it. I want to seize the initiative right now and try to get something done. We'll have to watch out for the fact that the e6 pawn will be backwards if he does decide to take here. But we can also take, and then we can remaneuver our rook over to e8. So our opponent is making good positional decisions right now so far in the game. So I'm highly respecting his positional acumen. And I think we can maybe pivot our rook and our queen over just to defend this pawn and try to push for e5 at some point. We could even consider doing that next move, although we would end up with an isolated d-pawn to complement our opponent. Our opponent also has an isolated d-pawn. Just going to do some shuffling around here and try to stay up on the clock and see what we can do in this game. I would say that this position probably is about even. Maybe white has a slight edge, but neither side is exactly breaking through. The bishops are not super active. Okay, so he's trying to bait us into taking once again, and I think that's actually going to be good for us. So I'm actually going to take here, and then I'm going to pull my knight back again to the d7 square. And now we have a concentrated attack on e5, but I don't even have to take that right away. And our opponent can play rook to c1, but that would allow us to trade off some pieces. And he can also play f4, so we have to watch out for that. Rook c1, queen takes, rook takes, and then we have to watch out for rook c7 at some point. So maybe trading off there wouldn't be the best. Let's keep our options open, and again, stay up on time as this game approaches what looks like it's gonna head into like kind of like an endgame position. Okay, now we have knight c5 as a potential option. He could play rook to d1, and then knight to d3 is in the air. Let's go for that. Not really afraid of him pushing f5 or something. We have that covered, and now this e6 pawn is no longer backwards because his e5 pawn is now in front of it, which was my main consideration when I was taking on e5. And again, our opponent has a space advantage. And he decides to take there. That's very surprising. Let's go ahead and take with a pawn. So that has given us the two bishops advantage. I think that was probably a positional mishap by our opponent there. I don't fully agree with his choice, and we're going to try to exploit that going forward in this game. And he's saying, I'm going to try to tie down your queen to the defense of this pawn. Let's see, does he have any sacrifices? I don't see it. Let's just defend it with our rook. So we have a rook defending against the queen's attack, which I'm perfectly fine with. It's a 5 material value piece defending against a 9 material value piece. And we can maybe do something against his b2 pawn here, which is, in fact, backwards. We can also attack this pawn. Let's not spend too much time thinking about it, though. I'm just going to put a rook on the b file to start with. And I'm scanning the position for any tactics right now. Thinking maybe he wants to get his knight in here to g5. We can prophylactically stop that by playing h6, but that would hang the g6 pawn. Or we can play bishop to h6 as well. Let me think about this a little bit. Spend some of the time that we've accumulated in this position to have a think. I think knight g5 is not a huge threat. We can always just pull the bishop back to h8 and defend h7. So I'm going to not worry about that too much. We can play c4 to try to pin his pawn back. Or we can also double up on the, let's play, what about this move I like? Let's give this a shot and challenge his b2 pawn. Okay, so he goes for knight to g5, and he's double attacking here, but he's also giving up his b1 rook. I don't think that's going to be worth it for him. Yeah, I personally am skeptical of his decision. I'm going to go ahead and take the rook. And once he takes on e6 with the knight, I can play queen d7. He's not even going to take. Okay, so now I can just calmly defend this pawn, and everything looks to be all right. So he's given up an exchange here all of a sudden in a sacrificial move, a very exciting move that has caused the game to heat up a little bit. So let's see what our opponent has in store for us next. We do have that additional time to work with. We have an extra 50 seconds if we need to stop and think about some tactics. The position is getting a little bit tactical, but it's not super crazy off the charts yet. I mean, we have a pair of rooks and 2 minor pieces traded off, so there's not much to work with for an attack. And this bishop is, kind of stuck here. This rook is stuck guarding b2, and so it's also not allowing his bishop to come back and join the fight. We just need to find a way to break through in this position. So he does try to attack h7. So as planned, we're just going to pull our bishop back to h8 and defend this pawn with our queen. The pressure is, he's kind of putting the pressure on himself to attack me in this position, which is fine, because I'm also fine with just sitting back and playing some moves and just waiting to see what he does and let him play out his clock, because I don't necessarily have a straightforward path forward in this position either. Let's go ahead and threaten to double up on the b file here. Oh, and this pawn is hanging. I just noticed that. Okay, so he might take that pawn with his queen. Okay, he does go ahead and snap off that pawn. I totally missed that, but we're still up on material, so everything is still fine. There's no reason to panic yet. And that's the second time my alarm has gone off in this recording. I apologize about that. And we're still up on the clock by 1 minute and 40 seconds, and we're not allowing our opponent to frame control us, which was our goal heading into the game. Let's try to trade off this knight if possible, because it's a very strong piece and it's been annoying me for a while. He goes b4. I don't know about that move. Let's go ahead and play a5 and attack it. And we're down to bullet conditions for our opponent. He does have that 5-second increment to work with, so he's feeling pretty good about himself still. And he plays queen to d2 to defend. And let's see if we can force his knight back. And his queen here might be overloaded at some point. Let's put some pressure on the f4 pawn, put some pressure on his knight, threaten to double up his pawns, and just get rid of the attack on e6 so that we can maneuver our queen over and try to overwhelm his defenses. Okay, so he does allow us to trade off the knight, which is fine with me. And then let's also take here. And then we're just going to triple up on the b file and pick up this pawn. He can't defend it with his light square bishop because it's on a dark square. So we just have too much firepower blowing down the b file right now. That is our frame right now. We're saying that you can't defend b4, and he can't really have any sort of defense against that unless he wants to be completely irrational. So he has to make some other claim about the position, say that we have a weakness somewhere else, or create a counterattack of some sort to generate a weakness. But he can't rationally be like, there's no problem on b4, because there is. And we're also hitting the f4 pawn now, so he's really got to watch out. He's got 4 seconds left in the position, and is he just going to flag? Okay, and he just flags. Let's take a look at the game review. A very nice game. It felt like it was back and forth and very exciting. And we've hit our all-time high rating of 1380 on this account. So we played at a 76.7%, a 1500 rating performance. So not the best. I personally would like to shoot for better because I want to aim for 2000 ratings. So I would like to be playing at a 2000 level if I can. Let's see where the computer may have recommended us to play a little bit better. So we're playing the Sicilian defense. It's a closed Sicilian. And here the computer is saying that we should play d4 right away. Okay. And after c takes, knight to d5 to maybe try to trade off this e3 bishop. Interesting line there. Probably would have helped us to fight for space a little bit better. I'm gonna check the opponent's moves later, but let's just focus on our moves for now. And here, it's saying that queen takes c5 would have been better. I thought that capturing towards the center and building some support for this passed d pawn would have been better, but the computer prefers queen takes c5 here, with the explanation that the pawn is potentially weak on c5. Rook a to b1 is potentially losing material, and bishop to d3 was a nice find there. And queen d7 doesn't like that, instead preferring c4 to lock the bishop down. I was thinking maybe he could just play b3 then. Let's see what the follow-up is. King h2, queen e7, knight goes back. Okay. Let's keep going. Rook e to b8. The better option was to increase a bishop's scope by playing bishop to g7. Okay, I'm not going to sweat that too much. It looks like Stockfish is just disagreeing with some of our positional decisions. Nothing really tactically disastrous that happened in the game. Knight takes e6. Knight takes e6 because if queen takes e6, there's bishop takes d5 to pin the queen to the king and win the queen. So that was an actual blunder. And instead, the computer would have preferred a takes b4 right away. Well, let's see. If knight takes, rook takes, bishop takes also pins the rook. Okay, so that opportunity was created by him playing queen d2 to target this d5 square. And here we just had the advantage because we won the b pawn. Okay, so I thought it was a pretty good game. Definitely a lesson in frame control, where we try to assert our arguments against the opponent. Throughout the game, there was a fight about who controls the center. There was a fight over the clock time, and there were some very particular attacks that our opponent had against h7, where we were able to successfully defend against those attacks. And in the end, we were able to succeed because we swung the play over to the queen side, and with our rooks not being so much impeded by the lack of space, we were able to kind of shift our attack over and win some material with the winning of the exchange, and then evening up in the pawns by taking his passed b pawn here, and then we have a passed d pawn, and we're up an exchange up in a very winning endgame. So hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Feel free to check out the previous video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.